Well, I'm here in an English classroom to continue our questioning of whether the story of Jesus is just a bunch of myth, or whether there's good evidence to believe that it's historically accurate and true. So if you encounter this idea of a myth, it might sound something along these lines. Sure, Jesus was a good person, he may have done good things, he was a good teacher, people really respected him, but after his death, the stories about him just grew and grew and grew and grew and grew until the point that what's recorded about him is just hyperbole and it's exaggerated and it's really just myth. So, what are we to do with that idea that someone might have? Well, we really need to examine this idea of myth to tackle our first response. And that is this, that in order for myth to develop, what you need is a significant amount of time. There has to be a lot of distance between when the events happened that are being discussed and when they were written down, or what our first written record of them is. And what we see in the case of Jesus is that the New Testament is written very closely to the time of the events being discussed. For instance, the book of 1 Corinthians is written probably 25 to 30 years after the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Now let's pause there, because I know that to modern ears, that's going to seem like a lot of time. 30 years? However, in the ancient world, there was often significant gaps between the events and when they were recorded historically. And yet, they're events that we don't even call into question. Things about the lives of the Caesars, or Alexander the Great, or the dialogues of Plato. There is so much from the ancient world that we teach students in English classrooms, in colleges around the country, that are not called into question, that have much larger gaps in events and recording than the New Testament, and yet people are very comfortable saying, oh, the New Testament, that's just a bunch of myth. And so take a look at this slide to see some of the gaps in events and recording that we're talking about. So you can see by that illustration that the gap between the events in the New Testament and when they are recorded is outlandishly close compared to other ancient sources, ones that we don't call into question at all. And if this is the case, then it might leave the lingering question, why is the New Testament so easily disregarded as myth? There's probably several answers that we could give to this, but let me leave you with just two thoughts. First, it could be that people simply do not know the evidence. And that is why it is so important that you and I know how to explain and defend the reasoning behind why Christianity is true. The other thing I want you to keep in mind as we go through these apologetics videos is that even as you are equipped to talk about the evidence, it does not mean that people will receive it and will receive Christ, because that is a work of every individual's heart surrendering to the work of the Holy Spirit in their lives. And so it may be that even in despite of really good evidence, people still reject Christ. But that is not our responsibility, friends. Our responsibility is to know and articulate the truth of the gospel. And I hope this video has helped you with some conversational tools for why Jesus is not a myth.